Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea, and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to Constellations and All That. Today, I'm excited to be talking with Brian Berneman, or otherwise known as Brian Berneman, who's from Argentina but calls New Zealand home. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk about constellation and all that.
Yeah, it's a fast expanding subject, isn't it? It seems to have a lot of momentum in New Zealand in the last few years, which is great.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I've seen this, especially the last 2 years, I've seen a huge growth in awareness and
Yeah.
also experience.
And so you and I met, I think it was 2019
Mhm.
at the
Yeah, I can
retreat.
remember.
We did the
Yes,
retreat in
in Fangada Heads.
at Whangarei Heads. Yeah, I was trying to think of the name, Davies Bay. That's right.
Yes,
And Constellations was still one of those, oh, not many people knew about it back then, did they?
yes.
So yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourselves for the listeners who don't know who you are.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm originally from Argentina, and I am fortunate that I chose the right family for this lifetime. I chose parents that, when I was a kid, started to get into their own path of growth and spirituality,
Mm.
and through their experiences, things started to shift at home a little bit. So conversations at the dinner table instead of watching TV whilst we were eating, and bringing some different perspectives and recommending books. And little by little, I started to, be intrigued by some of those practices or those perspectives. By the time that I was a teenager, they would invite me and my siblings if we wanted to go to classes or to
Oh,
different workshops with them. And for some reason I said yes. My siblings mostly said no, and I would go, and go and do a yoga class or a meditation class, or go and have a healing and things like that. And I found something really there that sparked a knowing in me. And I think that it was a
mm,
remembering of some of
yeah.
the things that I used to know. And as well, as a kid and a teenager, I was really stressed out. I was really anxious. When I started driving, I had a lot of anger issues, so a lot of road rage. And through these practices and through the healings, I started to see how I started to shift and my behavior daily started to shift. Therefore, I just thought, okay, there's something here. Let's go a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I was doing that as I had, my regular studies. I went to university and I studied journalism, and I studied another bachelor in communications. And then I started working as a journalist on the radio. And then a few years after that, I did my postgrad in neuroscience. And once I finished that, I was like, I need to go and explore the world. So I just bought a one-way ticket to New York, 3 nights on a hotel, and that was my plan. Uh, and then I lived in New York for a while. Then I lived in Miami. Then I moved to Germany. Then I went back to the US, where I lived in California for a few years in the middle of the mountain in a
Mm,
Tibetan Buddhist retreat center.
yep.
So those years there were super transformational, because I got to really immerse myself into just, this is all that I need to actually do. It's focus on me and whatever it is that I need to do in the community. And that was really helpful in bringing a lot of my understandings into how this can be incorporated into daily life. And
Mm.
then after that, and with a brief stint in Italy and the UK, I came to New Zealand. And yeah, now it's been 10 years that I've been here.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting. And throughout all of that time, I came across a lot of different healing modalities like Reiki, sound healing, different movements, somatic practices, family constellations. And with all of them, there was a point that I was like, I need to learn how to do this for me.
Yeah.
Not, I never thought, like I'll be doing this as a way of making a living. I just thought I want to know this, and the way of knowing this is going through the trainings.
Mm. Fantastic. So, who introduced you to Family Constellations? How did you meet it?
Yeah, so it was actually really interesting. I was doing this form of Tibetan yoga, and my Tibetan yoga teacher was actually a family constellations facilitator. I
Ah.
didn't know, but basically after one of the classes, I think that I was 16 or something like that. And after the one of the classes, she told me, "Hey, like I'm doing this thing on Sunday, if you'd like to come." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know what it was. And I actually went there on Sunday, and there was a group that was already kind of like practicing ongoing with different constellation circles, and there was not an explanation of what it was. So I was just suddenly in this circle full of people around, and my teacher was in the middle, and she invited this woman to go, and she started to tell her that she wanted to work on her relationship with her kids, that she wanted to have a better relationship with her kids. So then my teacher started to point to different people in the circle, and different people started to go, and I just thought that they were acting. I didn't know what family constellations was, so I just thought, okay, these people are acting, and this is psychodrama. And it wasn't until there was, the dynamic of what they were doing. It like my teacher was like, okay, there's something missing here. And so she asked this woman if she had lost a kid, and she said that yes. And then she pointed at me to come into the circle. And as soon as I stepped into the circle, I felt this need to go towards this strange woman, and I just went to her feet and I just hugged her. And in my head,
Mm.
I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then she comes down and she hugs me and she says, like, I see you and I love you. And I just start crying and crying and crying. And in my head, I'm like, what's going on? And then, like, well, a couple of things happened in the dynamic. And then I stepped out and I was like, wow, this was amazing. The
Mm.
experience that I had, I couldn't, at that moment, until I started to learn more about family constellations, I didn't really understand what happened, but I knew that there was something really powerful there.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was hooked.
It feels a little bit like that, doesn't it? Once the work calls you, um, it's very, yeah. Sometimes we call it, we have our constellation fans, and that isn't, it's just because you feel this desire to come back, whether you're sitting and doing your own pieces of work or whether you're witnessing or representing. It's just there's something in it that really feeds your soul, I would think would be a really good description for it. Oh, that's wonderful. And does anybody else in your family um, dabble in constellations?
Not facilitating. I think that my parents have definitely done sessions.
Mhm.
I can't remember if my siblings have. Actually, like one day I would love to actually do one with my whole family. But we'll see. We'll see if it happens.
Have you noticed a different, have you noticed a shift in your family since you've been receiving or experiencing constellations and
Yes, and as well, I think that I noticed because I was already working with Constellation and everything else that I was doing. When my dad started to do some healing as well, some constellation sessions
mm,
around some of the topics that there were some challenges in our broader family and a pattern that through that challenge actually taking place, we discovered a pattern that was taking place in generations. So my dad did a constellation, and I noticed then, okay, something has shifted.
wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you specialize in with constellations? You know, some people will specialize in certain areas like addiction or relationships or health. Is there anything that you particularly?
No, I actually, at one point, I was questioning whether I should, like
Mm,
do that or if there was something. And I realized that throughout time, and I think that partly it's because of how multidisciplinary I am in everything else that I'm doing around this. I think that it's just a beautiful tool to use for anything that comes my way. So I think that I'm more of the human element and whatever it is that
mm,
it's in our way or it's blocking us. I have found that almost everyone can benefit from doing a family constellation session. And one of the things that I have found, and I don't know how this is for you, Tracy, is that a lot of people, just because it's called family constellations, gets caught up in the fact that it has to do with family in terms of what their issue is.
hmm
And one of the things that I often say is that family constellations or systemic constellations is an understanding more of where these energies can come from or these entanglements can come from more than what's the actual blockage or issue or challenging in our lives.
I'm just thinking, so because I'm just doing this totally off the top of my head. Um, I probably should write a list, but I just like to wing it and see what the field is
Yes,
going to bring forward for us anyway. And I know that you've been doing quite a bit of work through the festivals. Yep.
yes,
And that's been creating quite a bit of interest, hasn't it? Like
yeah.
yeah, meeting a few people that are mentioning that.
That's quite interesting because every time that I'm doing a session, the energy is contained. Like
Mhm.
um, there's a start, there's an end. The energy of the space is contained when I'm doing one-on-one sessions, the same. On a festival, I wasn't sure if to actually do it because on the festivals there's people coming and going. People don't, like the energy is not that well contained because of that. Like some people are just, they testing things or just seeing if they are interested in it. So there's some people in the periphery, there's some people. So I remember the first, and then I've done this when I started the the workshops during the festivals. I made it clear, okay, this is it. Like nobody else comes, and if you are not wanting to stay for the entire time, this is the time to get out. So
Mm,
that we actually maintain the energy
beautiful. Yeah.
because like 100 people, 200 people, it's a lot of energy in the space and it's a lot of energy for everybody once we start the constellation process because suddenly they start feeling all of that
Yeah.
and for some people it can be quite a lot, especially if some people start to come and go, then the energy starts to be a little bit more challenging to contain and to experience in that way. So I do think that it has been wonderful seeing the shifts that have taken place during the festivals because of the fact that most of them, the people that attended, had no idea what family constellations was.
Mm,
And there was something that piqued their interest and they just came and they were like, okay, what's this? And some people did know and they were like, I'm going there and they wanted to experience it.
bring a friend.
Yes, exactly. And as well, I think that this is one of the challenges a lot of times for me during festivals, just not only for for me, facilitating just for festivals as a whole is that there's not that much time
Yeah.
for integration. There's not that much time for processing things. So I actually, in every single festival that I've actually facilitated, after the session, I had to stay with one or two people that were activated and they didn't have the tools or know how to actually self-regulate and come back
Yeah.
to being, okay and integrating the session. So I had to stay with them for, 30, 40 minutes just to work with them to support them. And I think that that's a lot of times one of the challenges in spaces like that, that a lot of people are just trying out so many things and
Yeah.
some of these experiences can be quite activating or quite transformational, or they can shift something big. And the container is not created as a whole of the festival. It's not created a lot of times for that safety. So because of my understanding on safety, it's really
Mhm.
important for me. And this is what I say every
Yeah.
time that I'm doing that is like, okay, if something gets activated, don't go away and just be wobbling around. Come and let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I say that too, and I say it in my workshops. If you activated, triggered, or whatever words you want to call it, it's your responsibility to let me know, and or someone that you trust, your own therapist or counselor, or don't go away feeling
Yeah.
completely
But
overwhelmed.
yeah, but I think that I'm really glad that I actually did those festivals because it I think that a lot of people after the festival started to
Mm,
know, and even if they didn't come to the sessions, they heard from other people that come, or just because it was, like part of the schedule, then people, even if they didn't come, they knew about it, so then they can do the research if something sparks an interest. So yeah, I think that it's been really, really interesting. And as a facilitator, facilitating constellations of, 200 people has been really interesting as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there was Soul Safari down in Raglan 10 years ago, I think that 10, 11 years ago, and I did 3 years at that, and then it kind of faded out, and then Spirit Fest started, and that was a beautiful learning experience as well, but and a great way for people to connect and meet the work. And I still get people, I'll get a message from someone saying, "Hey, I saw you 8 years ago at Soul Safari, or 10 years ago, or something like that." Now I'm ready to do a piece of work. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's so interesting, I think that just from our own path and our own healings,
Mm.
it's always at the perfect timing. Like I tell a lot of times to people, some people are like, I get a message from someone that they are interested, and I say, if it is the right time, it will happen. And if not, it's not the right time.
Yeah.
And just to be able to be okay with that for them so that they understand, like it's not always the right time. We might not be ready. The energies might not be, aligned for us to actually change something because
Mm.
perhaps we are still in the process of learning a lesson or whatever
Yeah.
that we might not understand fully, like everything of what is happening and why things are happening. And I think that that is important. And, I had this person a while ago that came to work on her business. Her business was a little bit stuck, like it wasn't flowing. And we actually I started, she didn't come as for a constellation session. She actually came for some holistic, perspectives.
Hmm.
And and I started to sense that there was something underneath, like this energy. So we did a constellation, and actually, what came out was that when she was like a teenager, she was sexually abused, and and she had, like forgotten about that.
Mm.
And during the process of the constellation, and we did a few more sessions, um, she was able to heal that. And then she told me, if it if it wasn't now, if it was a year ago, she wouldn't have been ready to even face the fact that that had happened to her. And
Mm,
now she was ready, unconsciously, she was ready to actually face this because she didn't remember really. But her life circumstances allowed her as well to do that. And then, and her business started to flow. But I think most importantly, she was able to actually heal, and that it was at the right time for her. This is one of the things that I love about the constellation perspective, that it it's not that linear, or it's not like my business is not flowing, therefore I need to do something with the business. It can be something that has nothing to do with that,
mm,
or anything in any kind of aspect of our lives. And I think that energetic entanglement is one of the things that I love, to be able to just trust that the field is going to show the right thing that needs to actually be worked on at the moment.
mhm. Yeah. And it's amazing how our body will hold on to things, right? And our and the unconscious things that block us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other things that you could share, like just for the listeners, so they can have an idea?
Yeah, there was one, a really interesting one, because there was this woman that came to one of the sessions, and she wanted to heal, uh, something. She wasn't sure. It had to do with relationships. She wasn't, like finding a partner. And during the constellation, what came up was her parents. And she told me like that she actually had been estranged from her parents. They haven't spoken in over like 8 years. She knew nothing
Um,
about them. They knew nothing about her. So we started to, like go with the constellation. And the following day, she sends me a message and she tells me, my dad just called me after
wow.
8 years of nothing.
Wow.
My dad just called me, and she's like, how did that happen? I'm like, well, you know, he was sensing something in the field changing. And I think that this is one of the powerful things that happened. And she was like, this is so surprising. And for me, I was like, amazing. It is not surprising. Like, I have had so many times where people, the day after or 2 days after a constellation session, they message me and you won't believe this, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I do believe it because it's
Yeah.
so powerful. And I think that that effect that doing a session can have on the entire family or on the entire system that we belong to is one of the things of why I usually say to people and invite people to try family constellations, because I have found it that in almost any other methodology that I use for healing, it has a little bit of an effect because we change, but it's not working specifically with those entanglements. Therefore, it's not actually having that same ripple effect with the rest of
Mm.
the people.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm fascinated by that. And I think that I've been through time with um, constellations that brought up things that people don't even know about at all.
Yeah.
Like there was this man that came to a constellation, and he's like, I don't know why I'm here. There's something that brought me here, and I don't know what I want to work on. So we started the constellation completely open, no topic, no specific thing to work on. And what came up was something that happened whilst her mom was pregnant of him. And basically he started to, or from that moment on, since before he was even born, this entire lifetime he had lived with this energy, with this shame or this guilt
Mm.
that wasn't his.
Yeah.
And he wasn't aware of it. He didn't know what it was. But once the constellation finished, he was like, wow, like this is completely different. Like this is a completely different life. And it's someone like I think that he must have been what, 50 something, 60, I can't remember. For the first time in their life, noticing that this heaviness or this cloud wasn't there.
That's great, eh?
Ah, I was, like it's so fascinating and
It's amazing what we feel when we're in our mother's wombs.
yeah,
The in anything that she's feeling, whether, if they were displaced or there was disconnection, arguing, hu- grief, all of those things. So if someone else in the family dies when you're in your mother's womb, you feel those layers of the pain that are
yeah,
unspoken. Yeah.
yeah. And
Amazing.
I remember when I was going through the training, and during the training we did a lot of constellations,
Hmm.
on for ourselves and with everybody else that was doing the training. And I remember one of the ones that was really powerful for me was that I didn't have a good relationship with my dad's dad, and I wanted to heal that. And
Yeah.
during the constellation process, what came up were things in the field about my grandpa because he escaped the Second World War,
Wow.
from Poland because of being Jewish. And so, suddenly, like in the constellation, Hitler is there.
Hmm.
And me forgiving Hitler. And it was so powerful. Like in my head, until I did it, I was like, no. And then I started to remember more the perspective of understanding, of compassion, and the understanding that, if it wasn't because of the Nazis, my grandpa wouldn't have escaped from Poland. He wouldn't have gone to Argentina. He wouldn't have had my dad. Therefore, I don't exist.
Exactly. Yep.
And that was, this big thing. And it's something that a lot of times with people that have had some huge trauma, like sexual abuse or something like more of a traumatic event happening in their lives, to be able to actually forgive the person that actually did that. I I usually share my experience of forgiving Hitler. And I did in one of the festivals, I did a constellation, a group constellation on forgiving the colonizers here in Aotearoa. And the same thing, like I shared this perspective of understanding, like it already happened. And if we are staying in this cycle or this energy of perpetrator and victim, it won't actually solve anything because we just want to get back and we want
Mm.
revenge instead of being able to say, okay, let's heal this. Let's choose something new and something different, something healthier for everyone involved.
That's interesting that you talk about forgiveness. In my teachings, the way I learned was that forgiveness is for yourself, for the grief that you carry, the pain that you're carrying. And rather than forgiving the perpetrator, it's about leaving it, giving them a place. Okay. So it's not about never, pushing them out of the circle, but it's about seeing them. They have a place. Like you say, if that hadn't happened with Hitler, your grandfather wouldn't have moved to Argentina, wouldn't have met your grandmother, your father, blah, 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 you wouldn't be here. So as Hitler has a place in the system, you can leave the pain and the grief and the angst and that with them and forgive yourself for having carried the burdens, the shames, the pain, and then you can move forward, right?
Yes, yes. And that's definitely the same understanding that I
Mm,
learned in terms of the
yeah.
forgiveness. Like I'm forgiving this person or this energy, not to get them off the hook. It's
Mm,
so that I'm no longer carrying that energy. Exactly as you said. Like
yeah.
when I understand that, It's about being compassionate with myself, most
Yeah.
importantly.
And you see people go, ah, and they take a really big breath out, eh? And it's like, yeah, they're getting it. And it makes the field lighter. You feel, that's been my own experience as well.
Yeah.
So
And
I really get that.
similarly to this, I think that a lot of times I get a lot of clients that come and they want to, like whatever is a challenge in their life, they just want to get rid of it. And I
Mm,
keep on telling them, what we want is to release it or to let go, not to get rid of things, because on my understanding, when we get rid of things, we're excluding it.
yeah.
And everything that we're excluding, that becomes one of those entanglements that then it's there for our entire system and
It
for
kind of
ourselves.
chases you around, doesn't it?
Yes. And
I'm
it becomes
excluding it
more,
and it's getting
yeah,
bigger and bigger and it chases
more
you around.
toxic. Yeah, like that's what I say. Like, so just for me, it has been so helpful, the perspective of I don't want to get rid of anything, any feeling, any energies, any experiences. What I
Yeah.
want is to include it, to embrace them, to be grateful for them, to love them, so that then I can let them go. So that then they are no longer holding on to me and I am no longer holding on to them. And I think that that is so powerful as a shift for my understanding and then for so many people that I work with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you don't just do constellations. I know you've got some amazing gongs and you do a lot of mindfulness and for the mental health and everything else. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's amazing for me to be able to actually, keep on playing all of these different aspects and just to be able to literally like I'm so grateful to make this my life, to be able
yeah.
to, have the gongs and the singing bowls, to be able to work with those frequencies and those sounds, to be able to go to university to teach mental health and well-being for people that are not, even
Yeah.
aware of anything on this this spectrum. Some people are a little bit, but majority of my students are really unaware of a lot of these things, and to be able to work with businesses to bring mindfulness and different practices to be able to be well, because at the end of the day for me all of the different practices, all of the different traditions, all of the different methodologies is to move from just surviving to living
Mm.
well. And I
Yeah,
think that
absolutely.
this is a
Absolutely.
potential that we all have. And unfortunately, majority of people wait until they hit rock bottom to do something about themselves and their health and their well-being. And
Mm.
and I think that this is where we can, not only take responsibility and be courageous, but also, like take back our power because we are powerful and we can be well. We don't need to stay just on surviving.
Yeah, society teaches us that, doesn't it? Hey, I was just kind of smiling when you were talking because I remember that on that retreat, um, there was an image, there was a photograph that we took, and you, in the photograph, you look like you're levitating. Like literally, we were all jumping, and in the photograph, I wasn't jumping very high. It looked like I'll just say that I might have been coming back down to earth at that time. But you were way up in the air. You'd crossed your legs, and you looked a bit like this one here, and
Yes.
you were floating in the sky. And as you were talking, I was taken back to that moment, and it was like, yeah, there's Brian. He's like he's living his dream,
Mm.
living his dream.
It's yeah. I a few times looking at that photo, like because since I was a teenager, I always had this thing of levitating, knowing
Mm.
that like I I can do it. It's not the thing that I'm like, it might happen, like I might levitate or fly in the future, or I might be able to read someone's minds. Like I know these things already, and most of the time I'm not able to do it because I get in my own way, of
Yeah.
course. Um, but the power that we have and the untapped power that we have is
Oh,
amazing. One
yeah.
of my teachers, he used to tell me all of our human potential is in our blockages. If we release all of our blockages, we reach our human potential. And the human potential is amazing.
Yeah.
Like the things that we're able to actually do.
Well,
It's
if you get your humanness out of the way, right, we can do so many amazing things. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to
And
see if I can find that picture and I'll put it up with this podcast, if that's okay with you.
yeah,
So
please,
people can
please,
see.
please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. But
It's a
it's
great picture.
I think that there is this really interesting thing that is taking place, and I think that I have noticed it more and more in the last few years of understanding a lot of people like throughout the lockdowns and all of that time that was
Mm.
kind of a big shift, like with a lot of, grief and a lot of sadness and a lot of different densities, and as well a lot of realizations for people of understanding, am I living the life that I want, and a lot
Yeah.
of people started to actually go more towards the route of finding themselves again and reconnecting with themselves and going through different holistic perspectives to be able to get to the place where they want, to be able to understand, they matter and they no longer want to live this unconscious life all of the time, and
Yeah.
they can actually do something amazing with their lives.
Absolutely. I found there was such a big shift during that time. Some people, I personally enjoyed that time. There was a much more downtime and more connection and family time. But there was a lot of, and I had the ability because I was doing quite a bit of work online anyway, and I had taught myself how to do constellations online, and then all of a sudden, um, there was lockdown, and well, I had some tools that others didn't have, so that gave me a little bit of an advantage in that time.
Mm,
And
yeah.
people needed it. It was
Oh,
so
so
needed
much.
at the time, right?
I did
And it
so
still is.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did so much online during that time. Like
Mhm.
as the same as I'm so grateful that I'm able to actually do that and support people during that time.
Mm.
Because this, this is one of the things that I usually tell people, really, like, except how perhaps, the dynamic or the experience, the transformation that takes place during a healing session, a family constellation session, whether it is in person, whether it is online, whether it is in a group, whether it is one-on-one, all of it works. Like
Yeah.
it, everything can support transformation. Like I know this firsthand for me as a client, and I know this as a facilitator. Like I have done all of it. People keep on asking me, like, should I do a one-on-one? Should I do a group one? And I'm like, just feel into it, because the difference there a lot of times is, okay, if we're in a group, there's more energies. So
Mm.
therefore, if you are more potentially, quite empathetic and you're swallowing everyone's energies, or you get triggered easily when other people are doing certain things, potentially a one-on-one session might be more conducive to feeling safe. Whereas if you don't have any issues with that, or if you don't have any issues of sharing some of your personal things with a group of people, then potentially a group one is good.
Yeah.
So, you know, I find a lot of times different people will need different things, and at different times we need different things. And everything works. That's the thing that for me it's like it's so powerful. The field is everywhere. There's no separation now between
Mhm.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you do all of your workshops in English?
No, I actually do in Spanish as well. And it's so interesting because I have found that even the times that I've had English workshops and someone came that spoke in Spanish, a lot of times to go to the depths, they
Mm.
needed to say something in Spanish. There is
Yes.
something there that I think that it's so important in the way that we've been conditioned, or how we experience those experiences that have to do with our native tongue.
Mm.
And so, like I do some workshops in Spanish here in Auckland. When I go to Spain, or when I go to the US, or when I go elsewhere, I do more in Spanish because there's more people.
Yeah.
Um, but I do like actually a lot of my one-on-one work is in Spanish. And I
Wow.
think that
Okay.
potentially, like a lot of people here in New Zealand that speak in Spanish, they do a lot of one-on-one sessions with me, potentially because they might feel more comfortable
Mm.
with speaking in Spanish, all of these things instead of in English.
Yeah, I do. I often do like there are different exercises that I do, and when it comes to talking to the parents or talking to the other person that's in, I will suggest to people that if English is not your first language, then please use translate this into your own tongue. So, and it is felt so much deeper, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I think I had a
Oh,
French lady, a Japanese one, a German lady, and I had a multitude of, and so they were all speaking in their own tongue at the same time as well. You know, there was English speakers as well.
yeah.
And even though the other people didn't understand, that was felt as a
Yes.
as their representatives, they were feeling the shift.
Yeah, I actually had this in one of the last constellation circles that I did. There was this woman, and she started to say some of the things in Spanish because I noticed that some of the energy wasn't moving, so she was saying it in English, and then I
Mm,
suggested to say it in Spanish, and the same, all of the representatives were like, and then they were like, I have no idea what you said, but I knew, like, because I
mm,
felt it. And I think that that is powerful. And and I think that this is, one of the things as well that I have found that is so powerful about the constellation work is that doesn't matter if we are witnessing, doesn't matter if we are representing, doesn't matter if we are working on our own topic as an, during the workshop or the session in all of those different ways, we are actually getting the benefit. And I think that this is something that I don't know how it's been for you, but it has taken a while for some people to understand that they can just come to a session and they don't have to work with their specific topic and they
mm.
will still get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I have people that just come to my workshops to represent or resonate or hold space, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Um, or just to witness. Sometimes they just want to sit back and witness.
yeah.
And they have said that for them, they get so much out of that.
Yes,
Yeah, and
I
that.
also have some people that just come like that, and like I had someone that came so many times, and I think that after 20 times of being a representative, then they finally came to actually do a one-on-one session to work on their own
Mm,
topic. But
mm,
it wasn't because they weren't ready. It was just because they loved
yeah,
just being there, and there was nothing that, or it wasn't the right time perhaps to work on their specific topic. And I think that this is why it's so powerful
yeah.
that
And I sometimes find that I remember when I was training, I'd be driving down to Auckland thinking about what it is that I wanted to work on. And you know, the first person that gets up and they virtually speak exactly what it was that I wanted to look at. And I'm like, okay. And then so I might have been in their constellation or just by witnessing it. And then I'm thinking, oh, I don't think I need a constellation today. That's just dropped a whole lot of things, all my pennies have dropped for me and I'm good to go. I'll just represent for the rest of the day, you know, like
Yeah. Oh,
so
it's so
yeah.
magical when that happens. Like I've had this happening so many times, like ending the workshop and suddenly someone, it's like, it was so amazing that I had this topic that I wanted to work on and then I represented that. And this is one of the things that I'm fascinated by. I am following the energy. I'm following the
Mm,
field. I am not choosing. This is something that I keep on telling people. I am not choosing who is the person we're going to work with, who is representing what. The field is choosing that because the
yeah.
field knows who needs to actually represent that.
Mm,
There is something in that representation or that resonating that is there for them. So, I had so many times people that came the same with they wanted to actually work on a specific topic, and then after the first constellation, they're like, oh, that's it. I already I already did that, just as you're saying, and it's so fascinating. I
mm,
had this the other time someone that came. and I think that she wanted to work on a specific topic, um, and but she didn't mention anything. We just started. She didn't say that she was interested in working on that or anything. And in four different constellations, she represented the same energy,
Wow.
which was the same energy of what she was feeling stuck in her life. And it was interesting because as a facilitator, I, of course, I'm open and I'm trusting. And of course, like my head is there still. And after the second time, like on the third constellation, when I chose her to represent the same energy, I was like, I just took a moment to be like, okay, well, there's something here that needs to change
Yeah.
because I'm still choosing her to do the same energy. And then I was like, actually, no, I need to trust that, like there's a reason why I'm being led to bring her to actually represent that energy. And I think that, that's once she then mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense.
Mm. Oh, brilliant. Well, we're coming to our time. It's just gone so fast. It's so good to talk to you. And just, the field is just, it feeds my soul.
Mm,
Yeah.
mine as
And I
well.
can hear the passion in your voice as well. If people wanted to get hold of you, Brian, how would they find you?
Through my name, Brian Berneman, on social media, on my website, brianberneman.com. If they are in Auckland and they want to do stuff in person, I work from the Life Center in Ponsonby, which is a beautiful place, beautiful healing space where I do most of my workshops and as well a lot of my one-on-one work. So, and if they are interested in doing online as well,
Mhm.
just my name, that's where you'll find me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share with us all here. And yeah, we really look forward to seeing more constellations evolving in New Zealand, hey?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
Tracy,
and
for
thank you for being
yeah,
a part of sharing that with the community because I just see the ripple effects of this work and how, we do a piece of work and how much it ripples out to our family and our community. So
yes.
thank you. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for creating the space. Thank you for helping to spread the word with this podcast, with all of the work that you're doing, with the immersives that you're creating. And yeah, let's keep on sharing this because this is for all of us. So let's do it.
absolutely. All right. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
listeners. And I hope you come and all received a nugget of wisdom out of this tonight. And yeah, enjoy and have fun. Ka kite. Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E, .cartwright. Or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.